My sister-in-law named her daughter after a name she found in my journal. When I told her it was the name I'd chosen for the baby I lost, she threatened to sue me for emotional damages for ruining her pregnancy joy. It started at my brother's house during Sunday dinner. My sister-in-law was 8 months pregnant and glowing with that smug energy only first-time mothers have. The kind where everything about their pregnancy is a miracle that's never happened to anyone else in human history. She'd been posting belly photos with captions like, "Growing our greatest adventure," and "Blessed beyond measure," since the day she saw 2 pink lines. Her Instagram had become a shrine to her expanding stomach, complete with weekly produce comparisons and countdowns to meeting our little miracle. She announced they'd finally chosen a name after months of deliberation. The months of deliberation had been documented extensively online, of course. Polls about whether her followers preferred classic or modern names. Posts about name meanings and numerology. An entire dedicated highlight reel called "Naming Our Daughter" that I'd avoided looking at. "We're naming her Violet Rose," she said, beaming at the assembled family around my brother's dining table. "Isn't it beautiful?" It just came to me like divine inspiration, like she told me her name from inside the womb. My fork clattered against my plate. The sound echoed in the sudden silence as everyone turned to look at me. My brother looked confused by my reaction, his hand frozen halfway to his water glass. My mother started talking about how lovely it sounded, but her voice was strained, tight with something that might have been panic. She knew. My father kept eating, oblivious as always to emotional undercurrents. My sister-in-law's parents beamed with pride at their daughter's inspired choice. But I just sat there, my throat closing up, my hands gripping the edge of the table so hard my knuckles went white. The room felt too hot, too small, like all the air had been sucked out. Violet Rose. The name I'd written in my journal 2 years ago. The name I'd chosen for my daughter before I lost her at 32 weeks. The name I'd whispered to her as I held her tiny, perfect, still body for the only 2 hours I'd ever get to be her mother. The name that was engraved on the tiny urn that sat on my bedroom dresser. The name I'd only ever said out loud in that hospital room, and later, alone in my apartment, when the grief felt like drowning. "Where did you hear that name?" I asked quietly, trying to keep my voice steady, trying not to make a scene in front of everyone. My sister-in-law waved her hand dismissively, like I was asking about a recipe she'd seen online. "Oh, I found it in a journal in your guest room when we were staying with you last month. Remember when the pipes burst at our place? I was looking for something to read one night when I couldn't sleep and saw it written on a page with little hearts drawn around it. It just felt so perfect for our daughter, like it was meant to be, like the universe put it in my path." The universe. She'd been snooping through my things and called it the universe, through my most private possession. The journal I kept in the drawer of my nightstand in the guest room. The journal where I'd written letters to my unborn daughter during the pregnancy, where I'd sketched tiny outfits and planned a nursery theme of lavender and sage green, where I'd documented every kick, every hiccup, every moment of joy before the devastating 32-week ultrasound that showed no heartbeat, where I'd poured out my grief in the months after, writing letters to a daughter who would never read them. Letters about what I would have taught her, how I would have braided her hair, the books we would have read together. "That name isn't available," I said, my voice shaking despite my efforts to control it. That was my daughter's name. My sister-in-law laughed, actually laughed. A light tinkling sound like this was all some amusing misunderstanding. "What daughter? You don't have any children." The words hit me like a physical blow. I saw my father's hands tighten around his water glass, the first sign he was paying attention. My mother's face had gone completely white, her fork suspended in midair. My brother's expression shifted from confusion to something like dawning horror. "The daughter I lost," I said, each word coming out hard and sharp, "at 32 weeks, 2 years ago. Her name was Violet Rose." The table went completely silent. Even my sister-in-law's parents stopped eating. Her mother's mouth formed a small O of surprise. Her father looked uncomfortable, like he wanted to be anywhere else. My brother reached for his wife's hand, his expression shifting through several emotions too quickly to track. My mother's eyes filled with tears because she remembered everything. She'd been at the hospital when I went into silent labor at 3 a.m., 2 months before my due date. When I delivered a daughter who would never cry, never open her eyes, never do any of the things I'd spent 32 weeks imagining. When the doctors explained that sometimes these things just happen, that there was nothing I could have done differently, that the umbilical cord had wrapped around her neck at some point, and my body had simply continued carrying her for days after her heart stopped. When they'd asked if I wanted to hold her and I'd said yes, just for a little while, and ended up clutching her for 2 hours while my mother sat beside me crying silently, when I'd counted her perfect tiny fingers and kissed her forehead and whispered Violet Rose, because that was the only gift I could give her, a name, an identity, proof that she'd existed, even if only for 32 weeks inside me and 2 hours in my arm, my sister-in-law's expression shifted from confusion to irritation. Not guilt, not horror at what she'd done, just annoyance that her big moment was being ruined, that attention had shifted away from her pregnancy announcement. "Well, I didn't know that," she said defensively, pulling her hand away from my brother's. "You never talk about it. How was I supposed to know? You don't have any pictures up. You never mention having been pregnant." "Because you read my private journal," I said, my voice rising despite my intention to stay calm. The journal that had letters to her, that had the ultrasound photos taped inside, that very clearly was about a pregnancy and a loss. She waved this off, actually waved her hand in the air like she was brushing away a fly. "I thought those were just ideas, like planning for someday." I didn't read the whole thing, just flipped through looking for something interesting. And honestly, the handwriting was hard to read in some parts. I skimmed, really. I just saw the name and it stuck with me. "And now we've already ordered the nursery decorations with her name. We've announced it to everyone at my baby shower. We've got it embroidered on blankets and printed on the baby book cover. We're not changing it now. Do you know how embarrassing that would be? How much money we'd have to spend replacing everything?" I felt like I couldn't breathe. The room was spinning slightly. My mother was crying openly now. My father looked like he wanted to say something but didn't know what. My brother was staring at his wife like he'd never seen her before. "You went through my private journal without permission and stole my dead daughter's name," I said slowly, carefully. "And you're worried about embarrassment and money?" "It's just a name," she snapped, her voice rising to match mine, her face flushing red. "You can't copyright a name. People share names all the time. And honestly, since you never actually had a living baby, it's not like the name was being used. We're giving it life. We're giving it meaning. You should be happy about that. You should see it as an honor that we chose the same name, like your daughter lives on through ours." The silence that followed was deafening. My mother made a sound like she'd been punched. My brother's face had gone from white to red. Even my sister-in-law's parents looked uncomfortable now, her mother reaching over to touch her daughter's arm in what might have been a warning. My brother finally found his voice. "Maybe we should talk about this privately. Let's all just take a breath and—" "There's nothing to talk about," his wife interrupted, her jaw set in a stubborn line I'd seen before when she didn't get her way. "We chose this name. We love it. We're using it. End of discussion. And I think it's really selfish that she's trying to make my pregnancy announcement about her tragedy that happened years ago. This is supposed to be a happy day." I stood up from the table. My legs felt shaky, but I managed to walk toward the door without looking back. I heard my mother call my name. My brother pushed his chair back. "Let her go," my sister-in-law said. "She's just trying to manipulate everyone with guilt. She does this. Makes everything about her." I turned around at that. "I do this? I make things about me? You went through my private belongings and stole the name I gave my dead daughter, and I'm the one making things about me? It happened 2 years ago," she said, standing up now, her hand protectively on her belly like I was a threat to her unborn child. "At some point, you have to move on. The world doesn't stop because you had a loss. Other people get to be happy. Other people get to have babies and name them whatever they want." My brother grabbed my arm gently as I moved toward her. "Don't," he said quietly. "Just go. I'll handle this." I left. I got in my car and sat in the driveway for 10 minutes trying to stop shaking. I could see shadows moving in the dining room window. Animated conversation. My sister-in-law's arms waving. My mother's hunched shoulders. Finally, I drove home. That night, I sat in my apartment holding the memory box from the hospital. The tiny hat they'd put on Violet's head, purple with white flowers. The footprints they'd taken, smaller than my thumb. The hospital bracelet with her name, birth date, and weight, 3 pounds, 2 ounces. The one photo I had of her, where she looked like she was sleeping peacefully, her tiny face perfect and unmarked by the tragedy of her death. I kept these things in a white wooden box that I'd painted with lavender flowers. I'd never posted about her publicly. The loss had been too raw, too private. Only close family knew, and I'd asked them not to discuss it with others. Not because I was ashamed, but because I couldn't handle the questions, the pity, the awkward conversations where people didn't know what to say. But sitting there with that memory box, with her footprints and her photo and her tiny hat, I realized I was tired of being silent, tired of protecting other people's comfort at the expense of my grief, tired of acting like Violet hadn't existed because it made things easier for everyone else. So I opened Facebook and I wrote. My hands shook as I typed, but I kept going. I didn't name my sister-in-law specifically. I just explained that someone close to me had gone through my private journal while staying at my home and taken the name I'd chosen for my daughter. I explained how I'd lost Violet Rose at 32 weeks 2 years ago, how the pregnancy had been normal until it wasn't, how I'd gone in for a routine appointment and they couldn't find a heartbeat, how I'd delivered her naturally, held her, named her, how naming her was the only thing I got to do as her mother, the only choice I got to make for her, how finding out someone had stolen that name from my private journal felt like losing her all over again, like watching someone else take the one thing that was sacred to mine. I included a photo of her tiny footprints with the date and her name written in the hospital's handwriting. I hit post before I could second-guess myself. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within an hour, I had hundreds of comments. Friends I hadn't heard from in years reached out with their own stories of loss. Women who'd had miscarriages, men who'd lost children, parents who understood the specific pain of choosing a name you'd never get to use beyond a death certificate and a tiny urn. People shared their own stories of grief and the ways others had minimized it. The post was shared dozens of times. Several mutual friends of my sister-in-law's commented, asking if this was about the name she'd announced at her shower last weekend. Someone who'd been at my brother's house for dinner confirmed it was, adding details about the confrontation. My phone exploded with messages. Some supportive, telling me I was brave for speaking up. Some telling me to let it go, that my sister-in-law didn't know, that she was pregnant and hormonal and I should be the bigger person. Someone sent me a long message about how grief has no timeline, but also we can't expect the world to stop for our pain. My aunt called crying, saying she hadn't known about Violet. Why hadn't I told her? Why didn't anyone tell her? My cousin sent me flowers. My mother called crying, saying she couldn't believe what my sister-in-law had done, but also begging me to delete the post before things got worse. Worse than stealing my baby's name? I asked. She's family, my mother said quietly. Your brother loves her. They're having a baby. We have to find a way to get through this. And I was family when I lost Violet. Where was all this concern for peace then? Where was the family intervention when I was sitting alone in that hospital room because no one knew what to say to me? When I came home to an empty apartment with a nursery half-finished and no baby to put in it? Where was family then? We didn't know how to help you, my mother said, her voice breaking. You shut everyone out. I shut everyone out because you all acted like she never existed. Like I was supposed to just move on and try again someday. Like losing her was sad, but not that sad because I'd never really known her. That's not fair. None of this is fair, I said. and hung up. The messages kept coming. My sister-in-law's best friend sent me a long paragraph about how I was being cruel and vindictive, how pregnancy is supposed to be a joyful time, how I was causing stress that could harm the baby. A girl I'd gone to high school with sent me a private message saying her sister-in-law had done something similar with her grandmother's name, and she understood completely. My brother called 4 times. I didn't answer. By the next morning, the post had been shared over 100 times. A local mom blogger had screenshot it and posted it on her page with a caption about respecting other people's grief. That post got thousands of reactions. Someone made a TikTok about it, one of those text overlay videos where they read posts and add commentary. It went viral. Suddenly, strangers were commenting on my post, finding my sister-in-law's social media, leaving comments on her pregnancy announcement photos. "Did you steal this baby's name from someone's grief journal?" One comment read. "Imagine stealing a dead baby's name and thinking you're the victim," said another. "The audacity," wrote someone else. My sister-in-law's Instagram comments were flooded. She deleted the name announcement post. Then she posted a long, teary-eyed video about how she was being bullied during her pregnancy, how people were making assumptions without knowing the full story, how she was just a mother trying to name her baby and people were attacking her. She didn't mention me specifically, but she didn't have to. Anyone following the story knew exactly what she was referring to. "I found a beautiful name and used it," she said in the video, wiping away tears. "I didn't know the full situation, and now I'm being harassed and threatened during what should be the happiest time of my life. My blood pressure is through the roof. My doctor is concerned about the baby, all because people won't let me be happy." The video got mixed reactions. Some people sympathized with her. Others pointed out that she'd gone through someone's private journal and taken a name that clearly had significance. The comments section became a war zone. My sister-in-law turned off comments, then made her account private. 3 days later, my brother showed up at my apartment. He looked exhausted, like he hadn't slept since the dinner. His shirt was wrinkled. He had dark circles under his eyes. For a moment, I thought maybe he'd come to apologize. Maybe he'd finally understood how horrific this situation was. Maybe he was going to tell me his wife had agreed to change the name. Then he handed me an envelope. Inside was a letter from a law firm, 3 pages of legal letterhead and dense paragraphs. My sister-in-law was threatening to sue me for emotional damages. The letter claimed I'd caused her severe psychological distress during her vulnerable pregnancy, that my social media post constituted harassment and defamation, that I was intentionally trying to ruin what should be the happiest time of her life, that I'd subjected her to public ridicule and caused her reputation harm, that I'd sicked an online mob on her, resulting in threats and harassment, that her business had received negative reviews because of my post, that she'd had to seek emergency medical care for stress-induced high blood pressure, that her doctor had warned the stress could cause premature labor. She wanted $50,000 in damages and a public apology. I read it twice, certain I must be misunderstanding something. Then I looked at my brother. "You've got to be kidding," I said. "She's really upset," he said weakly, not meeting my eyes. "The stress isn't good for the baby. Her blood pressure has been high. The doctor said she needs to avoid stress. Maybe you could just delete the post and apologize. Make this go away, for the baby's sake." "Make it go away? She stole my dead daughter's name and now she's suing me because I talked about it?" "You made her look bad publicly," he said, finally looking at me. He looked miserable. "People have been messaging her calling her heartless, cruel, a grave robber. Someone left a 1-star review on her business page saying she steals from grieving mothers. Her mother has been crying for days. Her father is talking about paying for the lawsuit. Her mother is devastated." I repeated slowly. "What about me? What about the fact that I had to deliver a dead baby? That I held her for 2 hours knowing I'd never see her again? That I chose that name while I was pregnant? While I still had hope? While I was imagining reading her bedtime stories and teaching her to ride a bike? That I chose that name and then had to watch them write it on a death certificate instead of a birth certificate? And your wife stole it from my private journal, and now I have to hear her living daughter called by my dead daughter's name? It's not like you're using it," my brother said quietly. And there it was. The same dismissal. The same thing his wife had said. Like Violet Rose didn't count because she never took a breath. Like the name didn't matter because the baby it belonged to was dead. "Get out," I said quietly. "Come on, don't be like this. We're family. Family doesn't steal dead baby names. Family doesn't sue grieving mothers. Get out of my apartment right now, or I'm calling the police." He stood there for another moment, looking like he wanted to say something else. Then he left, the envelope still on my coffee table like a bomb that hadn't finished exploding. I sat on my couch holding that legal letter, reading it over and over. My entire family was choosing her comfort over my grief, choosing to protect her from consequences over acknowledging what she'd done. I called my mother. "Did you know she was going to sue me?" A long pause. In the background, I could hear the television. She mentioned she was talking to a lawyer. I tried to talk her out of it. I told her it would only make things worse. "But you didn't tell me." "I didn't think she'd actually go through with it. I thought it was just talk, just frustration." "So you just hoped she wouldn't? You didn't think maybe you should warn your daughter that her sister-in-law was threatening to sue her for talking about her dead baby?" "Please don't make me choose sides," my mother said, her voice breaking. "This is tearing our family apart. She tore our family apart when she stole Violet's name. She tore it apart when she refused to change it. She tore it apart when she decided suing me was more important than acknowledging my grief. I didn't do this. She did. And you're letting her." "What do you want me to do?" my mother asked, and she sounded so tired, so defeated. "Disown her? Never see my grandchild? Force your brother to choose between his wife and his sister? I want you to acknowledge that what she did was wrong. I want you to stop acting like I'm the problem for being upset. I want someone in this family to stand up and say that stealing a dead baby's name from a private journal is cruel and wrong and inexcusable. It was cruel. my mother said quietly. It was wrong, but she's having a baby and your brother loves her and I don't know how to fix this. You can't fix it, I said. You already chose sides. You chose when you called me asking me to delete the post instead of calling her asking her to change the name. You chose when you knew she was threatening to sue me and didn't warn me. You already chose, Mom. I hung up. My hands were shaking. I forwarded the legal letter to 3 lawyers I found online who specialized in family law and defamation. All 3 had the same basic response. The lawsuit was frivolous. I couldn't be sued for sharing my own experience, especially since I hadn't named her directly or made false claims. I'd stated facts. I'd lost a daughter. Someone had taken the name from my journal. Those were provable truths. They could file the lawsuit, but they'd lose. One lawyer offered to respond on my behalf for $500 just to make it clear I wasn't going to be bullied into silence. I paid the $500 immediately. The response letter was beautiful in its simplicity. It stated that I'd shared my own personal experience with pregnancy loss, that I'd made no false statements of fact, that I hadn't named my sister-in-law or identified her in any way that would constitute defamation, that my sister-in-law's decision to use a name she found while snooping through my private belongings was her choice, and she must now live with the social consequences of that choice, that any further harassment or legal threats would result in a countersuit for emotional distress and invasion of privacy, that I had documentation of the journal entry predating her name choice by more than a year, that I had hospital records proving Violet Rose's existence and death. The letter was sent certified mail. My sister-in-law received it 2 days later. She posted another video. This one was angrier. Tearful accusations about how I was trying to control her baby's name from beyond the grave, how I was weaponizing grief, how she was the real victim here, how she found the name innocently and I'd turned into a vindictive monster. She made her Instagram public again just to post this video, then immediately private again. I didn't respond. My lawyer had told me not to engage, not to post anything else, to let the legal response speak for itself. It was one of the hardest things I'd ever done, staying silent while she painted herself as the victim. My sister-in-law gave birth 3 weeks later. She named the baby Violet Rose anyway. My brother sent me a photo at 2 a.m., probably in the exhausted haze of new parenthood. The baby was wrapped in a purple blanket, tiny face barely visible. The caption read, "Our beautiful daughter, Violet Rose, 7 pounds, 3 ounces. Despite everything, she's perfect. Despite everything. Like I was the obstacle they'd overcome. Like I was the problem they'd pushed through to get to their happiness." I stared at that photo for a long time. This baby was innocent. She hadn't chosen her name. She hadn't done anything wrong. But looking at her felt like looking at a grave robbery in progress. Like watching someone wear stolen jewelry and claim it was always theirs. I didn't respond to the text. I blocked my brother's number. Then I blocked my sister-in-law's number. Then I blocked them both on every social media platform. My mother called the next day. "Did you see the baby?" "Yes. She's beautiful. I'm sure she is. They really named her Violet Rose." "I know." A long silence. Then, "What do I do here? How do I be a grandmother to this baby and a mother to you?" "I don't know, Mom, but I know that every time you call her by that name, you're choosing to forget mine ever existed. Every time you coo over baby Violet Rose, you're erasing my Violet Rose, so you figure out how to live with that." I started therapy 2 days after the baby was born. My therapist, Dr. Kim, was a woman in her 50s who specialized in grief and loss. She didn't try to fix me or rush me or tell me I needed to forgive for my own peace. "Tell me about Violet," she said in our first session, and I did. I told her everything, about choosing the name, about the pregnancy, about the ultrasound where they couldn't find a heartbeat and the way the technician's face changed, about the delivery, about holding her and memorizing every detail of her face, about going home to an empty apartment and having to dismantle a nursery I'd spent months preparing, about the journal where I'd written letters to her for months after, about my sister-in-law finding it and stealing the name, about the lawsuit threat, about my family choosing comfort over justice. "Your grief is valid," Dr. Kim said. "Your anger is valid. And you don't owe anyone forgiveness if they haven't acknowledged what they did wrong." Over the following weeks, Dr. Kim helped me understand that I wasn't being stubborn or vindictive, that boundaries weren't punishment, that I had every right to protect myself from continued harm, even if that harm came from family. "Will I ever be able to hear that name without feeling this pain?" I asked her once. "Maybe not," she said honestly. "Some losses don't heal. They just become something you learn to carry, and that's okay." 6 months passed. I changed jobs, moved to a new apartment across town. I'd started dating someone I'd met at a grief support group. His name was Tom, and he'd lost his first wife to cancer. He understood grief in a way most people didn't. He understood that healing wasn't linear, that some days were better than others, that sometimes a random song or a purple flower or a baby's cry in a grocery store could bring it all rushing back. I told him about Violet on our second date. I needed him to know early, to understand what he was signing up for. "She was real," I said. "She mattered, and I'm not over it. I'll never be over it." "I wouldn't expect you to be," Tom said simply. "Loss doesn't work that way." He was the first person who didn't try to fix it or find a silver lining or suggest that maybe someday I'd have another baby and that would help. He just let it be what it was, a permanent scar, a permanent absence. My mother occasionally sent me updates about my niece, always careful not to use her name in messages to me. "The baby smiled today. The baby rolled over. The baby is sleeping through the night." Never Violet Rose. Never her name. Like even my mother understood that saying it to me was crossing a line. I never asked about her. I never asked for photos. I couldn't. Every milestone this baby reached was a reminder of all the milestones my Violet never got to reach. First smile, first laugh, first tooth, first steps. All the things I'd never see. Then one evening, I was at the grocery store when I heard someone call out, "Violet Rose, come here please." I froze, turned around. My sister-in-law was there in the produce section with a toddler in the cart. The little girl had to be about a year old. She had my brother's dark hair and his eyes. She was reaching for a banana, babbling happily. For just a moment, she looked at me with a curious expression, her little face open and innocent. My sister-in-law saw me and her expression went hard. Her whole body stiffened. She grabbed her daughter's hand protectively like I was a threat, like I might snatch this child away or curse her or something. Then she very deliberately turned her back and pushed the cart away toward the other end of the produce section, saying something to the toddler in a low voice that I couldn't hear. I stood there gripping my shopping basket, unable to move, hearing that name, Violet Rose, spoken out loud in a grocery store, not whispered in a hospital room, not carved on a tiny urn, but called out to a living, breathing, laughing child who would grow up with a name that should have belonged to someone else, someone who never got the chance. I abandoned my basket and left the store, sat in my car in the parking lot for 20 minutes trying to stop crying, called Tom. He came and picked me up, drove me home, sat with me while I fell apart. She looked so happy, I sobbed. The baby. She was just this innocent little girl reaching for a banana, and she has no idea that her name is stolen, that every time someone says it, I think about my daughter who died. She's going to grow up and never know. That's not your burden, Tom said gently. What your sister-in-law did, that's on her, not on you, not on that baby. But it felt like my burden. It felt like I'd been handed this weight to carry forever. That night I added a note to my journal, the one she'd violated 2 years ago. I wrote, "Today I saw a little girl named Violet Rose. She's beautiful and alive and has your name. And I hate that I can't separate the joy of seeing a healthy child from the pain of knowing what that name costs me every time I hear it. I hope someday I can. I hope someday I can remember you without this anger, but today I can't. And that has to be okay too." I started avoiding that grocery store, started taking different routes around town to minimize any chance of running into them. It felt ridiculous hiding from my own family, but I couldn't handle another encounter. Couldn't handle hearing that name called out for someone else's child. A year after the original incident, my father called. He never called. We talked maybe twice a year at holidays. Awkward conversations where we both pretended our family wasn't shattered. "Your mother's birthday is next week," he said. "She'd like to see you. Is my brother going to be there?" "Probably." "Then no. You're going to let this go on forever?" my father asked, his voice taking on that edge of frustration he got when people weren't being reasonable in his estimation. "You're going to miss your mother's birthday over a name?" "Over a name?" I repeated. "Dad, she went through my private things and stole the name I chose for my dead daughter. Then she threatened to sue me when I talked about it. This isn't about a name. It's about respect and boundaries and the fact that no one in our family seems to think what she did was wrong. It was just a misunderstanding," he said. "She didn't know. She knew it was in a private journal. She knew it wasn't hers to take. And when I told her what it meant, she doubled down. She chose keeping that name over our relationship, over family peace. She made that choice. Not me. Your mother misses you." My mother chose her grandchild over her daughter's grief. That was her choice too. I didn't go to the birthday party. My mother called me afterward crying. "The baby asked where you were." That stopped me. "She talks now?" "She's almost 2. Of course she talks. And she's seen photos of you. She knows she has an aunt." "Don't do this," I said. "Don't try to guilt me with a child who doesn't even understand what's happening." She asked why you don't visit. What am I supposed to tell her? Tell her the truth. Tell her that her mother stole her name from her aunt's dead daughter and that's why I can't be around her. Or better yet, tell her nothing. Let her grow up thinking I'm just a bad aunt who doesn't care. That's easier than the truth. 2 years after the initial incident, my sister-in-law sent me a Facebook message. It was the first direct communication since the legal threat. I saw the notification and my stomach dropped. I didn't want to open it. But I knew not knowing would be worse than knowing. "I think we should talk," it said. "For family. For Violet's sake. She should know her aunt. I'm willing to put the past behind us if you are." I stared at the message for a long time. The audacity of it. The complete lack of self-awareness. She was willing to put the past behind us. Like she was doing me a favor. Like I should be grateful for the opportunity to spend time with the child who had my daughter's name. I typed, "You went through my private journal. You took the name I chose for my daughter who died. When I expressed how painful that was, you threatened to sue me. You never apologized. You never acknowledged what you did. And now you want me in your daughter's life because it's convenient for you." 3 typing dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, "I didn't know it would be such a big deal. I thought you'd get over it by now. It's been 2 years. Don't you think it's time to move on? Get over my daughter dying or get over you violating my privacy and stealing her name? Both, I guess. Look, I made a mistake, but holding a grudge isn't healthy, and it's not fair to punish my daughter for my mistake. She's innocent in all this. I'm not punishing her. I'm protecting myself. Every time I hear that name, I think about my daughter who died. Every milestone your daughter reaches is a reminder of everything mine never got to have. Every photo you post, every birthday party, every accomplishment is going to be painful for me. And you expect me to just show up and pretend that's fine? Maybe if you spent time with her, you'd see she's her own person, not a replacement. Just a little girl who deserves to know her whole family. She deserves a mother who didn't steal her name from a grief journal. You put her in this position, not me. This is exactly why we can't have a relationship," she typed. "You're determined to stay angry. You want to be the victim." I blocked her. Then I called my brother. "Did you know she was going to message me?" "No," he said, sounding tired. He always sounded tired now. "But she mentioned wanting to try to fix things. For our daughter's sake." "Fix things?" "She told me to get over my daughter dying, to move on. 2 years later and she still doesn't understand what she did wrong." Silence. Then quietly. "That sounds like something she'd say. You're still with her." She's my wife, the mother of my child. I can't just leave. You could have stood up for me 2 years ago. You could have told her to change the name. You could have refused to go along with it. You could have done something other than hand me a legal threat. I know, he said, and I'm sorry. I was a coward. I am a coward. I chose the easy path instead of the right one, and I think about it every day. Every time I say my daughter's name, I think about yours. But not enough to do anything about it. What can I do now? The name is on her birth certificate. She responds to it. She writes it in crayon. We can't just change it now. You could have changed it 2 years ago, before she was born, before it mattered to anyone but your wife's ego. But you didn't. So now you get to live with that choice. And so does she. And so do I. I can't do this, I said, my voice breaking. I can't pretend to have a relationship with a child who has my daughter's name. I can't sit at family dinners and hear that name and pretend it doesn't tear me apart every single time. I can't watch her grow up and hit milestones that Violet never got to reach. First day of school, learning to read, losing teeth, all of it. I can't do it, and I shouldn't have to. I understand, my brother said. And I don't blame you. I need you to understand something, I said. I am not the one who destroyed this family. She did. When she stole that name, when she refused to even consider changing it, when she sued me for grieving, when she chose her own convenience over my pain at every single turn, that was her, not me. And everyone acting like I'm the problem, like I'm being difficult, like I need to get over it and move on. That's all protecting her. That's all choosing her comfort over my grief. And I need you to know that. I need someone in this family to actually know the truth and acknowledge it. I know the truth, he said quietly. For whatever that's worth. It wasn't worth much, but it was something. A small acknowledgement in a sea of denial and minimization. 3 years after the initial incident, I got a new job in another state. Better pay, better opportunities, but mostly just distance. A chance to start over somewhere no one knew my story. Somewhere I wouldn't run into my niece at the grocery store. Somewhere I could introduce myself without someone eventually asking about my family and why I wasn't in contact with them. Tom came with me. We'd gotten engaged 6 months earlier. He understood why I needed to leave. He'd done the same thing after his wife died, moved across the country to escape the memories and the pity and the constant reminders. I didn't tell my family I was moving until a week before. Called my mother on a Sunday afternoon. I got a new job. I'm moving to Colorado. Colorado? That's so far. That's the point. When will you visit? I don't know. Maybe holidays. Maybe not. This is about her, isn't it? About your brother's wife. It's about all of you. It's about the fact that 3 years later, I'm still the one accommodating everyone else's comfort. I'm the one skipping holidays. I'm the one avoiding my own hometown. I'm the one carrying this grief alone while everyone else gets to play happy family. I'm tired, Mom. I'm tired of protecting everyone else from the consequences of what she did. I miss you, my mother said, crying. I miss my daughter. I miss my daughter too, I said. But she's dead, and no one but me seems to remember that matters. I moved to Colorado 2 weeks later, started my new job, found a therapist who specialized in complicated grief. Tom and I got married in a small ceremony with just a few friends. My family wasn't invited. I sent my mother a photo afterward. She sent back a text. Congratulations. I wish I could have been there. You could have been, I replied. You chose not to be years ago. Life in Colorado was easier. No one knew my story. I could go to grocery stores without panic attacks. I could hear children's names without flinching. Violet Rose was just a name here, not a daily reminder of everything I'd lost. I joined a pregnancy loss support group, met other women who'd lost babies at various stages. We met monthly and talked about our children who never grew up, about the complicated grief that society doesn't know how to handle, about people who minimized our losses because our babies had never lived outside the womb, about the isolation and the anger and the exhaustion of grieving something most people thought we should be over by now. One woman, Rita, had lost twins at 28 weeks. My sister named her daughter one of the names I'd chosen, she said. She didn't ask, just did it. And now I have to watch this little girl grow up with my son's name. What did you do? I asked. I don't see her anymore, Rita said simply. Maybe that makes me a bad person, but I couldn't handle it. Still can't. My therapist says that's okay, that boundaries are necessary. My therapist says the same thing, I said. Do you believe her? Some days. 4 years after the original incident, my mother called. Your father had a heart attack. I flew back. Sat in the hospital waiting room with my mother and my aunt and my cousins. My brother showed up with his wife and daughter. The little girl was 4 now. She had pigtails and light-up sneakers and was clutching a stuffed unicorn. I saw them walk in and I stood up to leave. Please, my brother said quietly. Please don't go. Dad's in surgery. We should be together. I looked at my niece. She was staring at me with open curiosity. Who's that? She asked her mother. No one important, my sister-in-law said, pulling her daughter close. I'm your aunt, I said, looking at this little girl who had never done anything wrong. I'm your dad's sister. Why don't you ever visit? She asked, the innocent question of a child who doesn't understand adult complications. That's a question for your mom, I said. Don't, my brother warned. What? She wants to know, she asked. Your mom took something very special from me before you were born. Something I can never get back. And now it hurts too much to be around you. That's not your fault. But that's why. My sister-in-law's face went red. You're going to explain this to a 4-year-old? Now? Here? You wanted her to know her aunt. She asked why I don't visit. I gave her an age-appropriate answer. My mother stood up. Everyone stop. Your father is in surgery. This isn't the time. She was right. It wasn't the time. But there was never going to be a right time. There was never going to be a moment where this was resolved, where my sister-in-law acknowledged what she'd done, where my family chose my grief over their comfort, where I got to have both my dead daughter's name preserved, and a relationship with my living family. My father survived the surgery. I visited him once in the hospital when no one else was there. He looked old and fragile in the hospital bed, tubes and wires everywhere. "I'm sorry," he said, "about everything. I should have understood better. When you lost your baby, I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing. You could have said you were sorry. You could have acknowledged she existed." "I was scared," he admitted. "I didn't know how to help you. And then everything with your brother's wife happened, and I just wanted peace. I wanted everyone to get along. Peace at my expense." "Yes," he said simply. "I chose the path of least resistance, and I lost you in the process. I'm sorry." It was the first real apology I'd gotten from anyone in my family. It didn't fix anything, but it meant something. I flew back to Colorado the next day. Tom picked me up from the airport. "How was it?" he asked. "Terrible. Unnecessary. And I think maybe a little bit of closure, even though I hate that word." "Did you see your niece?" "Yes. And she's just a kid who got caught in the middle of adult problems. And I hope someday she understands why I couldn't be part of her life, but I can't sacrifice my healing for her confusion." 5 years after the original incident, my sister-in-law posted something on Facebook that a mutual friend sent me a screenshot of. It was a long post about how motherhood had taught her empathy, about how she understood now how precious children are, about how she'd made mistakes in the past but was growing and learning. In the comments, someone asked what kind of mistakes. "Just the normal relationship stuff," she replied. "Learning to be a better communicator, understanding other people's perspectives. We all have things we wish we'd done differently." No mention of what she'd actually done. No acknowledgement. No specific apology. Just vague platitudes about growth and learning. I laughed when I read it. A bitter, tired laugh. Of course she'd rewritten history. Of course she was the victim who'd grown through hardship, not the person who'd caused it. "You should let it go," Tom said when I showed him. "She's never going to acknowledge it. And holding on to anger just hurts you." "I'm not angry anymore," I realized as I said it. "I'm just sad. Sad that this is what my family became. Sad that Violet's name is being used by someone else. Sad that there's a little girl I'll never know because of choices her mother made. Just sad." "Sad is okay," Tom said. "Sad is honest." That year, Tom and I tried IVF. It didn't work the first time, or the second. On the third round, I got pregnant. We didn't tell anyone until I was past 32 weeks, past the point where I'd lost Violet. At 34 weeks, during a routine ultrasound, I started crying. "Is something wrong?" the technician asked, immediately concerned. "No," I said. "Everything's perfect. I made it past. I made it further than last time." My son was born at 37 weeks, healthy and screaming and perfect. We named him Henry, a name I'd never written in a journal, a name that was just his, with no history, no grief attached to it. I sent my mother a photo. "You have a grandson. His name is Henry. He's perfect." She called immediately, crying. "He's beautiful. I'm so happy for you. When can I meet him?" "I don't know yet. I need time to adjust, to bond with him, to protect this." "I understand. Can I tell your brother?" "You can tell him, but I don't want her knowing where we live. I don't want surprise visits. I don't want her inserting herself into this." "She wouldn't." "Mom, promise me." "I promise." Henry was 6 months old when my brother called. "I heard about your son. Congratulations. I'd like to meet him someday. When you're ready. If you're ever ready." "Maybe," I said. "Someday. But not yet. And not with her." "I understand." 3 more years passed. Henry was 3. Violet would have been 10. Sometimes I wondered what she would have been like. Would she have been quiet or outgoing? Good at math or art? What would her favorite color have been besides purple? I visited her urn every day. It sat on a shelf in my bedroom with fresh flowers beside it. Sometimes I'd talk to her. Tell her about her brother, about how he was obsessed with dinosaurs and refused to wear socks, about how Tom was a wonderful father, about how I thought of her every day. "I'm sorry I couldn't protect your name," I told her once. "I'm sorry someone else is using it, but you're still Violet Rose to me. You'll always be my Violet Rose. No one can take that." One day, Henry asked about the urn. "What's that?" "It's where your sister stays," I said carefully. We talked about this in age-appropriate ways, about how he had a sister who died before he was born, about how that made Mommy sad sometimes, but it was okay to be sad about people we love. "Can she hear us?" he asked. "I don't know, but I like to think so." "I wish I could meet her," he said. Then he patted the urn gently. "Hi, Violet Rose. I'm your brother Henry. I wish you could play dinosaurs with me." I had to leave the room to cry. 8 years after the original incident, I got a message from my niece. She was 8 years old and had apparently gotten her own iPad for her birthday. The message was typed in that careful, deliberate way kids type when they're still learning. "Hi. My dad says you're my aunt. Why don't you ever visit? My mom says it's complicated, but I don't understand. Can you explain?" I stared at the message for a long time. This innocent child asking questions she had every right to ask. I typed and deleted several responses. How do you explain this to an 8-year-old? Finally, I wrote, "Hi, sweetheart. Yes, I'm your aunt. I'm your dad's sister. It's complicated, like your mom said. Before you were born, your mom did something that hurt me very badly, and it hurt so much that I can't be around your family right now. That's not your fault at all. You didn't do anything wrong. Sometimes adults make choices that affect other people, and we're all living with those choices. I'm sorry I can't be in your life the way an aunt should be, but I hope you're happy and healthy and loved." She wrote back. What did she do? I didn't respond. That was a conversation for her parents to have with her, not me. I blocked her account and told my mother she needed to supervise the child's internet access better. "She's curious about you," my mother said. "She sees photos sometimes. She knows she has an aunt she's never met. Then her parents can explain why." "This has gone on long enough," my mother said, her voice taking on an edge. "It's been 8 years. She's a child. You have a son now. Don't you think it's time to let this go? Has she ever apologized? Has she ever acknowledged what she did wrong? Silence. That's what I thought. When she apologizes, when she takes real responsibility, when she acknowledges that stealing my dead daughter's name from my private journal was cruel and wrong, then maybe we can talk. Until then, this is where we are. Last year, my niece turned 10, the age Violet would have been. My mother sent me a photo of the birthday party, a cake with purple frosting, the number 10 in candles. My niece blowing them out, her face lit up with joy. I didn't respond. I saved the photo though, not because I wanted to remember the party, but because I wanted to remember what 10 looked like, the age my daughter never reached. Tom found me crying that night. What's wrong? Violet would have been 10 this week, and my niece just turned 10, and I keep thinking about all the things Violet never got to do, never got to be. And somewhere out there is a little girl with her name who gets to have everything Violet never got. And I know that's not that little girl's fault. I know she's innocent, but it still hurts. Of course it hurts, Tom said, holding me. It's always going to hurt. I'm tired of it hurting, I admitted. I'm tired of carrying this. I want to put it down, but I don't know how without betraying her memory. Healing isn't betraying her, Tom said gently. You can remember Violet and still move forward. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. How? I don't know, but we'll figure it out. People ask me sometimes if I'll ever forgive my sister-in-law, if I'll ever reconcile with my family, if I'll ever be able to be in my niece's life. The honest answer is, I don't know. Forgiveness requires acknowledgement. It requires the person who hurt you to recognize they hurt you and take responsibility for it. My sister-in-law has never done that. She's rewritten history to make herself the victim. She's decided that 8 years of estrangement is my fault for being unable to move on from a little misunderstanding. A little misunderstanding. That's what my daughter's death has become in her narrative. That's what her violation of my privacy and theft of Violet's name has been reduced to. So no, I don't think I'll ever forgive her. And I'm okay with that. I've learned that forgiveness isn't required for healing, that you can acknowledge someone hurt you, accept that they'll never take responsibility, and still build a good life. I have a good life now. A husband who loves me, a son who's healthy and happy, a career I enjoy, a home that feels safe, friends who understand grief doesn't have an expiration date. I still think about Violet every day. I still visit her urn. I still write her letters sometimes, updating her on what her brother is doing, what I'm learning, how I'm growing. You'd be 10 now, I wrote on her birthday last month. Double digits. I wonder what you'd be interested in, what you'd be learning in school, what books you'd love. I'll never know those things. And that's still the hardest part, not knowing who you would have become. But I know you existed. I know you mattered. And no matter who else uses your name, you're the only Violet Rose that matters to me. Last week, someone asked me if I have any children. I said yes. 2. A 10-year-old daughter named Violet Rose, who died before she was born, and a 4-year-old son named Henry, who's currently obsessed with dinosaurs. I'm so sorry about your daughter, they said. Me too, I said. But she was real, and she mattered. And I was her mother, even if only for 32 weeks and 2 hours. And no one can take that away from me. And that has to be enough, because it's all I have left. My sister-in-law took my daughter's name. She took my family's support. She took years of holidays and milestones and relationships. But she couldn't take the one thing that truly mattered. She couldn't take the fact that I was Violet Rose's mother, that I carried her, that I loved her, that I named her, that in that hospital room for 2 precious hours, I was everything a mother should be. And that belongs to me alone.